This video will demonstrate how to showcase your scholarly impact as an author or creator and tell your research story. This is a condensed recording of the workshop provided in November 2017 by myself, Nicole Weber, and Jen Mayer. I will be taking us through the first half of the recording, and Jen will finish up with the second half. All accompanying materials, including these slides with clickable links, are available at the website shown. You can also find this URL in the YouTube description. Demonstrating impact or reach of your scholarship and creative works can be beneficial in many ways. Foremost, we often think of making our case during annual evaluations and promotional applications. However, presenting our research stories can also help us win grants or other funding, attract students to our programs, and also get more acquainted with our area of study in order to find new potential research topics or partners. From this video and accompanying materials, we hope that you'll be able to become familiar with the scope of metrics available, understand some of the challenges and controversies surrounding impact, and learn some of the tools available to the UNC community to help showcase research impact. There are 4 main dimensions in which we can measure impact: author or creator, journal, institution, and output or article. While this video focuses mainly on assisting authors communicate their impact, it is difficult to discuss one dimension of impact without referencing the others. For instance, you can sometimes portray the impact of an author by referring to the popularity of the articles he or she has written, or by the influence of the journals he or she has been published in. You may also communicate an author's impact with the prestige of the institution he or she is affiliated with, or vice versa. Therefore, all of these dimensions are intertwined and help us to formulate a more complete picture of overall impact. These are some of the metrics we will be discussing in this video to help give you a better understanding of each dimension. There are many more than this, but we are going to focus on the tools and metrics that we have access to at UNC. First, I will discuss journal and output metrics, and in the second part of the video, Jen will discuss author and institution metrics. As we discuss each metric, keep in mind that no metric is perfect. There are many metrics that strive to be the one-stop shop for demonstrating impact, but all are limited in one way or another. We will call your attention to some of these limitations throughout the video, but in general, metrics are often limited in that they have trouble measuring both quantity and quality. In fact, most focus on quantity and struggle with incorporating components of quality. The proprietary nature of demonstrating impact also makes it difficult to formulate a complete picture. Some metrics are provided by companies that don't have access to all the data about a journal or article. You'll have to compare the same metric from multiple sources to help counteract this. Metrics are also constantly changing due to changing technology and abilities, and also an attempt to improve insufficient metrics. This makes it difficult to keep up with new metrics and to decommission unsatisfactory traditional metrics. Similarly, technology is making it increasingly possible to track more output types than we've been able to in the past. Traditionally, journal articles are the easiest output to measure, but we now desire to measure the impact of presentations, performances, curricula, datasets, and more. There's still a ways to go with these outputs, but impact metrics are attempting meaningful ways to showcase these products of our research and creative works as well. Finally, tracking impact looks different in all disciplines. The hard sciences focus on different aspects of impact than the humanities. Different institutions may also have various preferences and customs. Thus, it is difficult to compare two individuals from different disciplines or even from different institutions. Because of this, some say there is an over-reliance on metrics. Pictured are Clifford Lynch and Yves Gingras, who have written and spoken against some of the ways we use and continue to use bibliographic and impact metrics in academia. For instance, researchers and administrators can push metrics to support conclusions that ignore the limitations of metrics, which can contribute to the commodification of higher ed. Tenure and promotion incentive systems should not solely rely on metrics such as impact factors because they are reductive and often punitive. It is important to understand that many disciplines have acknowledged authorities, well-known scholars, and publications widely considered standard, and yet even in those situations, some scholars would challenge the authority of those sources. Yet some institutions rely on impact factor so heavily that they won't award job placement or tenure to researchers that have not published in the highest impact journals such as Cell, Nature, and Science. Instead of publish or perish, some scientists say it's published in a high-impact journal or perish. However, fit for your work and accessibility of content should be a factor in choosing a publication venue. Further, because journal publishers are often those providing metrics tools, conflicts of interest and lack of transparency can result. This is compounded by those who game the system to increase impact. For one, there have been cases in which journal editors routinely ask authors to add citations to previous articles from that same journal. Authors who have received such requests say that the practice veers towards extortion and represents a violation of scientific ethics. Luckily, Journal Citation Reports, who provides impact factors, will remove journals with high self-citation rates as a timeout and give them time to make adjustments in an effort to temper some of these behaviors. Keeping these challenges and controversies in mind, we'll first look at one of the most traditional and recognized metrics at the journal level. Journal impact factor is one of the most widely recognized metrics. This number is produced by Thomson Reuters through Journal Citation Reports as a fairly simple calculation of the average number of times articles in a given journal have been cited in the past 2 years. Still, it is a number that is difficult to replicate in order to check the JCR findings, and there is speculation that editors and publishers attempt to boost their numbers. Despite this, the JCR data used to find journal impact factor is the basis for other journal-level metrics due to the difficulty of collecting data on a large number of journals, which takes a lot of time and resources. Other metrics listed for the journal level are variations of counting and weighting the number of citations that a journal's articles receive. Various methods of weighting attempt to give more credit to citations from important journals or correct for differences between disciplines. The Cabell's Classification Index, or CCI, relates a journal title to the other titles in a discipline. A journal title may have multiple CCI percentiles depending on how many disciplines it covers. This slide shows even more journal-level metrics that you may look into. One of note is the source normalized impact factor, which, like the CCI on the previous slide, attempts to make it easier to compare journals across different fields and disciplines. The group that provides this number, CWTS, also freely offers a self-citation metric, which can give even further insight to the quality of a journal's citations. We encourage you to look at a number of these metrics and the methods each provider uses to calculate them. These are often available from their respective websites. You can access these links from the copy of the presentation slides on the website. Also keep in mind that metrics are most commonly available for larger and more popular publications. Thus, newer titles and smaller titles will not always have data available. This is indicative of how these metrics are more reflective of impact and influence rather than quality or reliability, even though they attempt to do both. Knowing and understanding these metrics can help you as a scholar make decisions about where to submit your manuscripts and have a better understanding of how journal publishers compete for and attain influence in your area. It is also important to note that each institution or department may keep lists of preferred journals for their researchers to publish in. Don't forget that you and your departments make up the experts in these fields and have unique insight into which journals are appropriate for your situation and work. Switching gears to the output level metrics, we will take a look mainly at how we know articles have been read, discussed, and reused. While we'll touch briefly on the other types of outputs, articles are still the most easily tracked, and technology is allowing for new ways of doing so. Most traditionally, we look at how many times an article has been cited by other scholars. This can easily be done with tools such as Google Scholar and various databases to which the library subscribes. Remember, these sources will likely all report different numbers, so you need to do some work to synthesize this information and paint an accurate picture of your work. Beyond time cited, however, are new metrics that we can track about the usage of articles. In large part, this is made possible by social media platforms and more advanced database interfaces. We call tracking these new numbers alternative metrics or Altmetrics. Altmetrics have been defined as the creation and study of new metrics based on the social web for analyzing and informing scholarship. These new metrics can now track more immediate actions that happen to an article, such as whether it has been saved to a folder in a database, downloaded, referenced on social media or blogs, and more. Companies who provide this information include Plum Analytics, which we have at UNC, the company Altmetrics, and others. While they compile a lot of information on articles and other outputs, it's not always transparent how they collect this data or how often their numbers are updated. Some may be monthly, while others may be weekly or even daily. Still, these numbers add an additional dimension to how your work is being discussed and who is interested in it. This slide shows Altmetrics provided by the Plum Analytics tool PlumX for a particular article. We can see that it has been mentioned on Twitter 16 times and that its abstract has been viewed 361 times. Additional details about some of these metrics are available when viewed in the interface. Articles for which these metrics are available can be retrieved through EBSCOhost databases and UNC's institutional repository. The same article has Altmetrics available also through Altmetric. You may hear some people call it the Altmetric donut, which is a colorful circle with a number inside. Here we see that the article has a comparable 15 mentions on Twitter, but it captures different data than PlumX had. It captures 2 mentions on Facebook and 123 readers on Mendeley. Altmetric gives different weights to these sources and comes up with the overall score of 11 that you can use to compare with other Altmetric scores. This tool, Altmetric, and PlumX portray very different pictures of the same article that are difficult to compare to one another. Therefore, it is helpful to gather as much information as is available from a variety of sources to adequately portray your work. While UNC does not subscribe to Altmetric, you may find these scores in our tool called Summon, which is available from the main page of the library website. Finally, there are even more newly emerging metrics to measure our outputs. The authors Romer and Borchardt describe some of these metrics as fuzzy metrics and endeavor to use these metrics to describe more outputs than just articles. For instance, you can look at the acceptance rate of a publisher or venue to which you have been accepted. Similarly, you can find out how many subscribers or members they have. These numbers may only be available from the publisher or venue itself, and it may not be something they track or wish to divulge. You can also look into numbers that describe an output's circulation or how many libraries have it in their collections. Library holdings can be especially available for outputs such as books and can be looked up by individual library or in WorldCat, a database that attempts to contain the holding information for all libraries worldwide. These numbers are not easily obtained or as precise, but they do demonstrate the desire to measure impact in more dimensions and more fully. They are certain to keep evolving, so check in with your librarian or our further reading list to keep up with what is new in impact metrics. Next, Jen will discuss tools and metrics that are specifically helpful in the author and institution dimensions of impact.
Hi, Jen here. I'm going to discuss metrics at the author and institutional level. Some metrics used on the author level are very straightforward, like publication count and average citations per article. Others are more complicated. For example, the average field-weighted citation impact indicates how the number of citations received by a researcher's publications compares with the average number of citations received by all other similar publications indexed in a specific database called Scopus. SciVal is the commercial product that works with Scopus, and it is intended to show research performance and comparison to peers, so it's very database specific. The H-index was developed in 2005 by a University of California, San Diego physics professor named Jorge Hirsch. The formula considers both the number of articles a researcher has published to date and the number of citations received by each publication, and uses these to determine a citation threshold that only a certain number of publications can be said to meet or pass over. The G-index gives more weight to heavily cited papers, and it's a complex mathematical formula. S-index is proposed and shows self-citations. The I-index is the number of publications with at least 10 citations, and it's a measure from Google Scholar profiles. There are criticisms of the H-index. The H-index can only be as high as the number of publications. So in order to have a high H-index, you need a high number of publications. This metric favors mid to late career faculty. It never declines. So a professor who is active early in their career in research and then less active later can still have a very high H-index. Some critics refer to it as the H-index outbreak because it is so prominent. And critics say the H-index is neither a measure of quantity nor quality. There are other options. So there is the contemporary H-index, which sometimes is referred to as H5 or HC. It focuses on the last 5 years of works and how those are cited. So there is less weight to older articles. The G-index weighs recent citations more heavily as well and could be fair, but as you can see, it is a complex formula. However, the H-index may be useful for comparing individuals from similar fields who have been in the field for a similar length of time. Here's a slide that simplifies the breakdown of calculating the H-index. So in this example, the researcher's H-index is 3. Here's a comparison of a few databases using Dr. Deanna Meinke from UNC. So the first column features Web of Science, which is a very specific database. Second column, Publish or Perish, and then Google Scholar citations. Web of Science has the least number of citations because it indexes a finite group of publications. It did make a difference when we searched Meinke DK, which includes her middle initial, versus Meinke D. Publish or Perish is freely accessible. You would need to install a free download. It's not too difficult to set up, but it's a little clunky to use. There are tutorials online. Why would you use Publish or Perish? You can actually curate Publish or Perish yourself to solve any issues you might have, i.e. missing citations that somehow were not caught by automated databases, such as the Google Scholar profile. So Google Scholar is very prevalent. It's easy to set up and useful. Shifting gears, author IDs are a key way to tell your research story. The main purpose for an author ID is to showcase your work and to help solve any name confusion problems that may exist with your name. So for example, if an individual has a very common name, first and last, it helps solve issues of different versions of names, such as instances where someone has used their full name versus initials. It helps with transliteration of characters between languages. Accents and diacritics are typically hard to express consistently as digital characters. It helps with that issue, as well as name changes due to marriage or other legal reasons, or for people who have multiple family names. We are going to focus on Orchid today, but there are other author ID options out there listed on this slide. Orchid. Orchid stands for Open Researcher and Contributor ID. You do not need to call it Orchid ID since that's redundant. ID is part of the acronym. And it provides a registry of unique persistent identifiers. What we really like about Orchid is that it's nonprofit and it's platform agnostic, so it is not tied to a specific database. It's openly accessible and free, and it does integrate with Researcher ID, which is a Thomson Reuters product. It integrates with Web of Science under Tools. You can register for an Orchid at orchid.org. There are pros and cons to author IDs. You can see the pros very much outweigh the cons on this list. So again, it very much helps solve name confusion. Very important, it helps others find your work. So you can use that for your own self-promotion, student recruitment, in order to find collaborators and to help expedite funding. So grant boards know it's you that's applying. Many publishers and funders now require researcher IDs or author IDs. It's very easy to add your Orchid or other ID to conference presentation slides or even your email signature file. The challenges related to author ID is it's very focused on journal article publications. So therefore it favors disciplines that are journal focused for their scholarly output. Some IDs need to be updated manually and curated by the researcher. Others auto-populate and there might be errors to be fixed. So it's important to keep on top of your author ID profile. Here are some other tips for telling your research story. So publishing in open access journals is a great way to get your work out there and accessible to other researchers and cited. UNC has a faculty publication fund that can assist in this endeavor. UNC also has Scholarship and Creative Works at Digital UNC, which is an open access repository where students and faculty work are featured. There are also disciplinary repositories available. There's many out there. Some, like SSRN, are now profit-based. Some are nonprofit, such as CORE, which is a humanities discipline-specific repository. Other ways to tell your research story: you can sign up for citation alerts when someone cites you. You can learn more about initiatives like Altmetrics HSS, which is an exploratory metric for the humanities that involves equity, openness, collegiality, quality, and community, instead of relying on the numeric metrics we've been discussing today. That is being guided by various faculty in the humanities. Social media is an important way to get your work out there. There's a variety of platforms to do that. SlideShare, putting your slide decks out on SlideShare so they're easily accessible. You can see how many times that your work has been downloaded there. A big word of caution for academia and ResearchGate platforms. These are both commercial entities. They sell ads and job posting services and do not guarantee long-term preservation, as do an institutional repository like Digital UNC. These types of sites, academia and ResearchGate, do not permit users to reuse their own data elsewhere, nor do they permit libraries to extract and share data on the author's behalf. They have both been involved in lawsuits. Most recently, ResearchGate was involved in a copyright lawsuit filed by publishers like Wiley and Elsevier that claimed there are 7 million articles out on their platform in violation of copyright. Academia, as it is now called, charges to enable advanced search features. So again, a great reason to post your work in an institutional repository. Metrics at the institutional level. This slide features a screenshot from Web of Science, a database UNC Libraries subscribes to. This shows the trajectory of UNC-affiliated authors' research output within the Web of Science database suite, and you can see it continues to go up. So the top cited article for a UNC affiliated author at this time is Bats, Important Reservoir Hosts of Emerging Viruses, which has been cited 502 times since it was published in 2006. So this gives you an idea of the trajectory for UNC in the area of the sciences and social sciences. Another institutional metric is scholarship and creative works at Digital UNC, our institutional repository. It's a great way to see the overall picture of UNC's scholarly reach. You can see the top 10 downloads for items in the repository, the paper of the day, and watch the real-time download map so you can see what is being downloaded where. If you have material in our repository, you will get download reports on how many times your work has been downloaded. If you're interested in posting your work, you can post it yourself, or please get in touch and the libraries can help you with that process. Please do get in touch with any questions regarding this presentation. Thanks for listening.